Brothers Adam and Steve Ghrist were working the service side of the restroom business when a large contract pushed them into needing more restroom trailers. While thoughts of building their own trailers had been considered previously, this was the push they actually needed. Shortly thereafter, they decided building trailers for others was going to be the new endeavor.
So, I mean, it was really slow. And I mean, I can tell you, like, I told you, we signed up for that wet show, and we were so excited. We're building trailers, and we're hearing all the stories about how people sell these trailers. So this is gonna be great. We go to the show, and I mean, we were like dragging people out of the aisles, like, please look at our trailer.
Despite a slow start, the brothers learned that a quality product and perseverance always pay off. Listen in. Adam and Steve, you guys were originally you somewhat inherited your parents' business in the service side. Is this right?
In a way, yeah. They've
inherited the wrong word. Did I already choose the wrong word? They probably made you buy it.
Well, kind of sweat equity out of that thing.
That's not all bad though. That's still better than the alternative, which is cash equity.
Yeah, that company was it's called Windswept Event Rentals.
This was like '08 that you guys started joining the Windswept team, right?
I mean, we worked part-time a lot when we were younger. When I graduated college, '04, I started full-time then. So I had a lot of years in there. Yeah.
How long had your parents been running the service side? Like your whole, adolescent years, that was what they did?
91 is when that started.
So they started that in 91. So you guys kind of grew up with the business.
So yeah, it was such a diverse business. When it started, it was a totally different animal, but we were involved with it when I'm 7 years old. My parents would make us work every day doing random things on it. But it started as actually a hot air balloon company. That's where the name Windswept came from. Yeah, totally off the wall. So it was very, very different. My dad flew hot air balloons. He'd fly passengers, and then we got corporate sponsors. You put the logo on the balloon, fly around. And that led into, this was before Google and everything. People would call all the time and say, hey, you guys have that big inflatable balloon. My kid's having a party. Do you have one of those inflatable bounce houses? And for years, my dad would take this call and say, no, we're hot air balloons. And one day he was fed up and he said, you know what? We do. We got to inflate.
Yeah, we do. I'm going to buy one today.
Yeah, he ran out, bought one, did the job. It was the easiest money he ever made. And we started growing into the
So does he just kind of evolve? He realizes, okay, well, now I've got a hot air balloon, I got a bounce house, and now they need toilets. Is it that kind of the way this goes, just loosely?
Loosely, yeah. I mean, there was quite a few more steps before we got to toilets, but yeah, we eventually got there in '07.
It sounds like your dad, is he kind of an entrepreneur, or was he just kind of forced into being an entrepreneur just because he realized he was leaving money on the table, so to speak?
Yeah, my dad doesn't like to say no to anything. And my mother and my father obviously they started it, and together they just it seemed like since the inception the concept was just don't say no to anything. If it makes money, say yes. And
well, good for them.
So
you two are growing up with this business. Are you both thinking, when your kids like, well, ultimately I want to take this over? Or are you both thinking, oh my goodness, let's go to school and get the heck out of here?
I mean, I think, I don't know what age it was. I kind of decided that I would stay in the business with them. Probably at some point in time after high school, after maybe first or second year college, I thought, you know what? I think this is something I'd like to stick with and do. And really dove in full time after we graduated. And then Adam graduated 2 years after me. And
that's what I was just going to ask. What's the age gap between the two of you? So there's just 2 years between the two of you.
Yeah.
I have a brother the exact same age gap, and if I had to work with him, I'm being serious. I couldn't do it. That has to be a little bit of a challenge, or is it not?
I mean, we've worked together forever, since we were little kids till now. So comes with its challenges, as with anything, but no, I'd say we get along pretty good for brothers and business partners.
That is impressive. Your parents are obviously, they're gone from the business now, and we'll talk about how the business has evolved into what it is today at some point. But when do your parents exit?
So we started building restroom trailers around 2015 for our rental fleet. Maybe 2014 or 15, we started building for our rental fleet.
Just for yourselves?
Yeah. And it
And your
wasn't
parents are still involved then?
loosely,
Yeah.
they're semi-retired at that point in time. We built a couple for our own rental fleet, really liked what we had, reiterated them a couple times, and modifications. Then decided, hey, maybe this is something that we could do. Maybe we could sell these out.
Well, let's go backward a little bit. Why you guys are a service company at the time?
Mm-hmm.
You recognize the need. Do you own another company's trailers at that time, or do you realize there's demand for these and we can just build our own?
Yeah, so we did own a few different manufacturers' trailers by that point in time. What initially spurred us into building our own trailer, honestly, was we got a big contract. It's one of these things they called, it was Chevron. They called and wanted us to do all their natural gas fracking sites, provide these trailers. And
you guys are in Pennsylvania, to give a little bit of background on that.
Yeah. They needed more trailers than we owned. And of course, we're sitting here taking this call and saying, yeah, we can do that. We can absolutely do that.
You learned that from your father.
Yeah,
this is the bounce house equivalent.
Yes. Yeah. So, we had some trailers at the time, but I needed a lot more, not to mention the ones I had were already booked for other things. So, we hang up the phone with Chevron and start reaching out to some of the manufacturers to get trailers. And for the most part, everybody's got big lead times. We were able to buy a couple, but not enough to fulfill the contract. So, we didn't have much of a choice. We said, let's build, we'll build what we need for these other ones, which turned out to be a lot bigger undertaking than we thought.
It's funny you say that, because that was one of my questions I had for you right off the bat. You've got them, you use them, you know how they're essentially set up, and you think, well, there's nothing to this. It's a box on wheels with a tank in it and some toilets.
How hard could it be?
Yeah, how hard can it be? I've done that same thing with cars and old trucks and all kinds of things. How hard can it be? And it's not like you're going to jump on YouTube and someone's going to say, here's how you build a restroom trailer. And you don't know what you don't know, but did you just basically reverse engineer what you had?
Well, we were really fortunate because we had purchased our first restroom trailer in 2007, and we, immediately when we were dealing with the trailers, setting up the trailers, cleaning the trailers, there was a lot of things about these trailers that we didn't like. And as with most entrepreneurs, it was something that we always said, like, man, I know I could build a better product than this. But we were so busy, it was really not high on the radar. However, sometimes you get super frustrated with what we were experiencing, and we dig in a little further, and we already had pretty much drawn up how we were going to do it. We already started looking for vendors, in multiple.
So at least in your head, you weren't starting from ground zero.
It was not from scratch. If it was from scratch, there was just no way we would have been able to pull it off. We had already been kicking the idea around for years, but just never had the light switch moment that forced our hand. So when that situation took place, we were already kind of 90% of the way there to get started. It was just a matter of pulling the trigger, getting materials, and putting it together.
You had a lot of positive things going on. It's easy for a manufacturer to, do a survey or talk to their customers at a trade show and think they're getting the right information back. But I would submit that you had a leg up because you were actually doing it. And to your point that you talked about earlier, in our heads, we already knew what we wanted to fix. And you already had that groundwork in your head, but still, to go from just buying a toilet to making them, how do you, what happens capital wise and things like that? Because there's got to be a large capital investment there.
Yep. Very, very different. And, there's the twofold. There's the capital side, and then there's the manpower and the knowledge. Fortunately, with my parents' upbringing, that we never said no to anything. This wasn't the first time that we were forced to kind of go completely outside of our usual realm and learn entirely new tasks and expected to do it well. So this isn't.
Where do you get your startup money? Did you have, were you able to cash flow it through the other business? Did you go get a loan? How did that work out?
It was
a little combination of all those things. So we were able to leverage our existing business a little bit. We were able to get money in from banks and things like that to make this happen.
Yeah, and our party and event rental company, when this all first started, our event rental company was very successful. We had a very large, one of the largest on the East Coast as far as party and events go.
You're beating me to my questions. That's what I was kind of wondering. Was the other company big enough to support? And I assume they operated under the same umbrella, at least for a little while. So was the cash flow from service supporting manufacturing?
For a very short period of time that was going on.
Pretty much while we're building them for ourselves. When we were building them for our own contracts and putting them in our own rental fleet, it was all self-sustaining at that point.
What are you doing for employees at that point? Do you go right out immediately and hire people, or are you using the people you have, opposite of running service routes and stuff like that?
So in the early years, it was Adam and I and a couple of choice people that built all the trailers, and that was happening at night. After we finished all of our work for the day, we'd keep the lights on the warehouse and start building the trailers.
Yep.
So your first trailers are just for yourselves because you have this big Chevron contract. I assume you were able to meet their needs.
We did.
Yeah.
And you've got these trailers and you're building them. Do you realize there's demand out there from other service companies, or what makes you start to say, like, okay, instead of just for us, let's take this a step further?
Yeah. So, for years, kind of like Adam said, we started talking about this, and our party rental company was growing fast. It was a really good company, and there was a lot of talk about the possibility of acquiring a different party rental company in an area. And I can remember saying, that seems great, but it is so, in Pennsylvania, it's so seasonal, where we were ramping up and I'd need 60 guys working here, and then the winter I had no work at all. And I can remember saying, I don't really know that I want to add another company. It's so much labor, it's so hard, and talking about, why don't we look at manufacturing these restroom trailers? I mean, they're a great product. We've seen in our own rental side that there's a huge demand for them, and we make more money renting a restroom trailer than any of the party rental stuff we do. And from trying to buy trailers, we can see what the lead times are like. There's obviously demand out there. Why don't we give this a try? And we started kicking that around, and then the Chevron thing happened, and we built these, and that kind of just got the ball rolling.
Well, there's two things there that caught my attention that you talked about: the seasonality of Pennsylvania weather.
Mm-hmm.
In the back of your head, you kind of had to be thinking, well, our trailer rental business probably shuts down to near zero in the wintertime. If you're like, we're in northern Wisconsin, and I know that the portable toilets season is 4 months, 6 months here, and then there's a couple little shoulder fringe areas. Were you thinking we could build these in the off season?
That's what he was thinking.
The first thought is, we can kind of do this in the off season. We'll build a stockpile of these, and then we'll sell them. We'll just sell them while we're busy.
From this thought process to, we'll build these in the off season and sell them, when we're not busy, to this turning into something full time. How does that scale up?
It became pretty obvious. I mean, the plan was great because it was able to keep, our large seasonal party rental staff busy. But we kind of, as we started getting into it, started quickly realizing that there is a stark difference between most of your traditional rental operator guys and the type of employees we would need for proper manufacturing. So we started seeing hurdles that, this guy's awesome at putting up tents, but boy, he is lousy at,
Can he weld?
Yeah. So it became kind of, we weren't able to see the cross benefits that we originally expected. And that's kind of how we started branching off into a totally separate entity, totally separate staff. It just started making more sense. We weren't getting those dual benefits.
Don't go too deep in the weeds on this, but the manufacturing process, do you buy a lot of the components? And if I'm asking anything proprietary, we can just move past it. But like, do a lot of the components, like, does the trailer come in welded together as a trailer, or are you cutting steel?
I mean, you have to, there are manufacturers out there that will just go buy a cargo trailer, a regular frame that you can buy anywhere.
and then stick build around it and throw a tank in it. We do not do that. That was
And you never did that even early on when you weren't really like set up appropriately.
From the first trailer we built, I mean, we engineered every square inch of that steel frame and had it all fabbed and welded together specific to the application.
Well, that's super interesting to me only because, to your point, you didn't have the right staff.
Right.
No.
So you're shooting from the hip on this, and they're turning out still to your satisfaction. And at this point, they're just for you. So let's face it, if something goes sideways on one, it's your loss.
Oh, it was a perfect setup for us. I mean, we could test almost anything we wanted, any concept we wanted.
Yeah, your R&D is all in-house.
We would do it in-house, and if we're like, oh man, that didn't, or that's showing a lot of wear and tear, we replace it. And we didn't have a customer yelling at us. We were able to for years really test and modify all of our plans, all of our materials to really trial and error and make sure it was perfect for the field.
What year is it when you shift from manufacturing for yourself to manufacturing for others?
2017.
So 2017, you roll out your first trailer. How are you marketing that?
So 2017 was when we kind of decided we're doing this. We leased a building, hired staff other than just Adam and I and my dad helping out with it as well, and we got going. When we kind of moved over to this company, my parents decided, hey, it's time to retire, and they sold the rental company off at that point in time, which was a huge leap because we had no idea if this was going to work at that point in time. And I think Adam and I were probably in our early 30s at that point in time. So it's we both have families to support, so we had to make it work at this point in time. So we get started in this new lease space, and I mean, we're only building at the time, like it would take a month to build a trailer at that point in time, maybe longer.
Yeah.
And as far as marketing goes, I mean, I got a website put together, got our name out there that way, but that was a slow go. I can remember our first big financial commitment was we signed up to go to the wet show. And that was our big kind of, show off our trailer and get going.
Well, the portable toilet service industry to some degree is kind of like truck buyers. I always buy a Chevy. I always buy a Satellite. I always buy a Poly-John. I'm talking about the toilets themselves. Well, the trailers. Was the trailer market segmented a little bit like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Very much so.
So I guess that was the root of my question on how do you get your foot in the door, just proving that you're building a trailer that fits their needs and price it appropriately and hope you sell those first few and then they become customers.
So, I mean, it was really slow. And I mean, I can tell you like this, I told you, we signed up for that wet show and we were so excited. We were building trailers and we're hearing all the stories about how people sell these trailers. So this is going to be great. We go to the show, and I mean, we were like dragging people out of the aisles, like, please look at our trailer, and you got that.
And was a lot of it because of what I just recognized that, like,
people would come in and be like,
I don't buy trailers from you.
Yeah, there was amazing loyalty. We were just shocked that, people would, nope, I buy from them.
That doesn't surprise me. I hate to tell you, you guys should have called me in 2017, but how do you finally, angle in? Is it just, like I said, a matter of getting one or two out there and then you spread by word of mouth?
We really did. I mean, we found quickly that it was going to be hard to get people just to buy trailers from us that were already buying somebody else's. And our focus really shifted on our online presence and we started really going after the party rental market that we knew really, really well. And going after people that didn't own trailers yet, but already had tents, tables, chairs, all this stuff. They had the customer base lined up for it. And we had the proven model to show them, hey, you had this trailer and you're going to increase your revenues.
You started to go after those first-time buyers and recognize that, hey, they have no loyalty to XYZ company. So let's make them loyal to us.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the nice thing is you probably recognize once they're loyal to you,
once you get them into your product, as long as we do our job well, we build a good product, provide a good service, then we develop that same type of loyalty. So that was exactly how we had to start it. I mean, we had to grind out every single
customer every single sale to convince them that why our trailer is the one they should start with. And from there, it got easier. Once we had trailers out on the market, even people that weren't loyal to us, if they were loyal to someone else, sometimes they would have to sub rent. And then whether they liked it or not, they were now touching a Lang trailer, and they'd actually start, oh, wow, this is nice. Or they'd finally actually get to see it. And then we started getting a lot of conversions. We were starting to get customers from other manufacturers that wouldn't even glance at us just because they finally, whether they wanted to or not, got to see the product.
The good thing, bad thing about the trailer industry too, and I don't know if it's still as much that way because I'm not as involved in the wet show as I was 10 years ago when we owned it. But the trailer industry, to your point, which is kind of what got you in this in the first place, was supply and demand were skewed. There was actually more demand than there was supply. And if maybe even in 2017, that could have worked to your benefit a little bit too. And even today, I'm not sure how supply and demand is working in that industry as much as I did a few years back. But were you able to, like, just because my preferred manufacturer doesn't have anything available, I'll grab one of yours? That maybe help a little bit too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was definitely, that was our chance to kind of infiltrate some people that had loyalties. Was, yeah, hey, they're 12 weeks out. I have a trailer sitting here. You have a contract you need a trailer for, and they land up buying our trailer and then try.
2017, you guys go to the wet show. You have families. You've got your necks stuck out. Did you sell any trailers that first year? Did you break even? What happened?
I think I may have shed some tears at the wet show. I mean,
You cried yourself to sleep on the hotel pillow?
it was definitely, when we left that show, we were thinking, oh my God, what did we do?
Were your families with you at this show too, and just thinking, oh my goodness, who did I marry?
It was us, and we didn't have a team or anything really. Our parents actually came with us, and they love going to the shows. They still come to the shows with us, but they came and helped us try to sell trailers. And like I said, we went to the show thinking we were going to be so busy, and we're going to need all these people to write orders, and it just didn't go that way. And we landed up selling the trailer we took with us, which we practically gave away. I mean, for less than our cost on it, and and then we'd come back, and not that we had a ton of employees at the time, but we had our employees, and they're all excited about it, and to come back and try to tell them, like, well, we
choose your words carefully to tell your employees you sold 0.0 trailers other than the one you basically gave away.
Yeah, so that was
So how long did it take to turn the corner?
As hard as it was to deal with the outcome of that show, we kept confident and kept persevering, kept building, kept going. And it wasn't long after the show that we started, not from the show. I wouldn't say we did not get a ton of people from the show. And like Steve said, it's because in the 3 days of that show, we were only physically able to drag 5 people into that booth to consider looking at our product. So we just had such little traffic. It was the organic. We were pounding away on the phone, calling party-run companies, calling anybody and everybody that we knew that could use one of these. And we were picking off a few orders at a time, getting some traction that way. And we were always chasing. I mean, it was full blown. Every single minute of the day, you were doing everything possible to just sell one more trailer.
This is all just year one.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time in year one where you thought we needed to pull the plug on this?
I don't think we had much of a choice. It was going to work.
Yeah.
But we got to go get jobs somewhere, do something else.
We at least leased the building. We had a 2-year lease.
Mm-hmm.
We had a 2-year lease on a 20, and the first one was 15,000 square foot facility, a 2-year lease. We had to buy pretty large quantities of materials for even vendors to even allow us to purchase from them. Quitting was just not an option.
Back to the root. I think the root of my question, and I think we all kind of lost track of it. I don't know. I sometimes take people down weird roads, but the root of my question, what was the time from startup, 2017 wet show to we got this? Years?
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of year 2, we were starting to feel confident that it was that we had something. So at the time we got to the end of 2018, things started to move in a direction where we started to feel pretty good about it.
Now we're coming up on an interesting time too. You're talking about 2018, 2019.
Terrifying.
What happens when COVID comes around?
It was, we were just finally getting 2019, like we're
Just
like,
getting on your feet, and then all of a sudden,
our
breaks.
customers are calling back saying, hey, our trailer's booking like crazy. I need another one. And, things are we're starting to see like, oh, it's coming to fruition. Everything that we planned is happening.
We made a huge leap into buying a new facility. Because we needed more space. We needed overhead cranes. We needed stuff like that. Sign all the documents and all this. And then 3 weeks later, it's like, nobody's allowed to go to work. Yeah, we're shutting everything down.
Not even not go to work. Nobody's allowed to hold events.
Yeah. No, that was a major problem there too.
So we started backlogging our orders in 2019. We could see a production. We actually had more orders than we had trailers produced for the first time ever. And we bought a 48,000 square foot facility and retrofitted it with cranes and everything we needed to run this facility the way we had planned on doing it. And it was weeks after signing the papers that everything shut down.
Well, you guys had persevered 2 years of anxiety and angst already, and the whole COVID thing lasted probably all of a year or two by the time we got back to full speed. And you obviously made it through it because we're still sitting there. Is that the 48,000 square feet behind you we see right now?
Yes.
So you get through this again and you're thinking, my goodness, all right, as long as nothing goes like this again, things kind of pick back up quickly then, and you can kind of get back on your feet and go full steam ahead again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, COVID was an interesting time for us as far as, first there was problems with, workers not being allowed to come to work and getting through all that and getting a staff back together. And then obviously, like you pointed out, a lot of the people that are renting these to events and things like that, their events just stopped. So the demand for the trailers kind of died. And that was really scary. We had people canceling orders and everything. And like, okay, what are we going to do? But as quick as that happened, which is
supply chain.
Well, the supply chain was a problem too, but we managed to get ahead of that. But as quick as our event people kind of canceled on us, and this was kind of like a big aha learning moment for us too. Yeah, there was like a month of full panic for us that all our orders are canceled. What are we going to do? And everything flipped. All of a sudden, these new customers started calling that were providing trailers at hospitals and vaccination sites and all this. And now we did have to design some new floor plans because kind of what we were selling didn't really fit exactly what they were looking for, but it was still in our wheelhouse what we did. And we ended up having, a fantastic COVID didn't hurt our sales whatsoever. It actually increased, not necessarily sales, but it increased our customer base and what we were able to service.
Different usage.
Absolutely.
So that type of usage was able to carry you through, because as much as that usage existed, the hand sanitizer, latex gloves, and a different type of trailer market existed. That dried up as fast as COVID did.
Oh yeah.
But by then you were probably able to transition back to the core.
So we learned a lot from COVID because of that. Pretty much up until that happened, trailers were always kind of considered this luxury item. It was something for high-end luxury type events. And all the trailers were kind of built accordingly. Our Chevron account was like a real eye-opener for that. All the trailers we had were, they were great for a wedding where people were dressed up real nice and very gentle on everything. But as soon as you get a 300-pound guy with steel-toed boots and a flame retardant suit going in the bathroom, they're breaking everything. And
you needed a more utilitarian type.
Yep. So that was a big focus for us, like with our trailers, is we wanted to make sure that we didn't experience, our customers didn't experience the same thing that we had. We tried to make sure that trailers weren't built just specifically for a luxury high-end event. They could go anywhere. So we had to source all new materials. And that was a big part of our testing. We were using the same type of materials when we first started that a lot of our competitors were. And it just,
you could see how quickly they got the crap kicked out of them. So we had to source all new stuff that we could test and say, holy moly, that held up to the construction side or the coal mine or that's how we kind of developed everything.
What's tough with the trailer industry, when you start to improve materials, typically the weight goes up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to figure out, like, well, we can't just keep putting better and better stuff in because at some point this thing isn't going to be towable on the axles we've got here? How do you, like, again, you guys don't know what you're doing here initially. I'm not trying to, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to say that, but how quickly are you picking this type of stuff up, or did you hire an engineer or something like that to help with things like that?
I mean, weight and cost, that's the big thing. When weight wasn't nearly as big of an issue as cost. There was a reason why everybody is using the same materials to build trailers in the whole country. It's because it's readily available, it's affordable, and you know how to do it. So when we tried to veer away from the standards, we were hit like, holy moly, this wall panel is phenomenal, but it's 3 times the price of the industry standard. So price became more of our problem than weight.
In my opinion, that's easy for me to say, but that's a very simple problem to get over, because if you can become, let's just say, if you become Airstream, when people buy an RV, I don't want to name any names here, I gotta be careful. When people buy an RV, there are RVs that are literally made of cardboard and seem disposable. And then there's going to be a middle bracket, and then there's going to be an upper bracket. And there is an audience for everything, because once you bought your first tow behind trailer and you got to your campsite and you open the door and everything is laying on the ground, you realize, like, I might have made a big mistake.
It looked great in the showroom.
They do. They all look identical. To your point, the materials all look great. They all look like they're wood and they all look like but there is a difference. Yes. And there is a difference in price. And at some point, were you guys able to position yourselves as, we do cost more, but there's a reason for it?
That was yes, but that was certainly an uphill battle. Yeah. It took a long time. And I think part of this problem is, like, you brought the RVs. You can go, there's RV dealers all around you. You can go and touch and feel and tap on the side of the RV. Most of the sales in the trailer world, all of our manufacturers, we don't have distributors or showrooms set up. They have to travel. A customer would have to travel to your factory to do that. And when they do that, they're only seeing your product. They can't really compare it against what else is out there. So you're trying to sell this, verbally explaining why this costs more, why this makes sense. But all they really have is what you're telling them in pictures to look at. So,
but I would think just like in the RV industry, if you're a service company, it doesn't take long to figure out that this trailer is more durable.
So you're right, but the kind of what we talked about earlier, when we were early stages, every customer, we were fighting for startups, these new people. You don't know what you don't know. So when you have it's hard to sell an Airstream to a first-time camper buyer. Everybody 100%. Makes that mistake, buys the cheap one, all the stuff falls off the wall, it rots, and they say, you know what? Next time we're buying an Airstream. So when you're dealing with not uneducated, but people who haven't owned a trailer before, it's a hard sell. They don't.
Inexperienced might be the way to say it.
Yeah. So that was the hardest part about it, is the people we were really trying to convince to get into a trailer were also the ones that were easily duped by, oh, this one's so pretty and it's got this in it, because they never had to clean it, they've never had to repair it, they've never seen how quickly it falls apart. So it's an uphill battle when you have the more expensive durable product when you're selling to the entry-level market.
Learning what you've learned over, let's just round up and call it the last decade, even though it's not quite a decade. Where do you see yourselves 10 years from now? Have you kind of felt like, okay, we're in a good place now, we just need to put this thing on cruise control, grow like the market grows, or what do you see yourself doing now?
I mean, I think we continue or plan to continue growing, and it kind of as what we've seen over the last handful of years. There's a lot of products that are ancillary to what we're doing. Still trailers, still could be restroom, could be showers, laundries, bunkhouses, things like that. We want to keep expanding that market. But what we don't want to lose focus on is the customer service and the quality that we provide right now. That's a major thing to us, is being able to service these trailers and service the customer. So we don't want to grow. We don't want to grow too fast that we lose that, basically.
To learn more about Lang Specialty Trailers, visit langrestroomtrailers.com. Please be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast to keep more great interviews like this one with Adam and Steve coming right to your favorite podcast app.